much later. Muy bien. Y muy buenos días. Buenos días. Y feliz lunes. Feliz lunes. ¿Cómo están todos? ¿Están bien? ¿Bien?
Está bien.
¿Bien? ¿Está lloviendo en Illinois? Aquí no está lloviendo. ¡Ja! Claro que no. We're going to hope we have no further funny, funky, weird fire status to update you with. Yes, first fire of the season, first wildfire of the season happened this weekend. Oh yeah, I could smell it out where we were because the winds were blowing so strongly it carried it from about 30 miles away. I could still smell a little bit this morning, but we're getting better. Bueno, vamos a empezar. We're going to do a little here and there. We're kind of dip our toe in. First session, as always, a little bit of the old and a little bit of the new and a little bit of just warm up. I am going to show you, put on share screen, the page we are going to use today. If you didn't read your email before and didn't see this, no big deal. You can always pick up this file later, and we are going to show it on share screen when we actually do the practice, but this is going to be our small group practice. What you see here, it says cada cuánto, or con qué frecuencia, how often. Those are some of the words we're going to use with our warm-up drill, and we're just going to use easy schmeezy verbs. Cosas muy fáciles, things that are really, really easy. We're going to use a lot of regular verbs. Oh, I threw in a pides. Okay, one stem changer in there. Ves, one thing that's gotten irregular, yo. And okay, boy, es irregular. We got a couple irregular funnies in there. But some things to incorporate, bringing in adverbs of frequency with regular verbs. So if you have that printed off, you might want to look for that page. Or if you bring up two screens in one computer, you may want to prep and do that ahead of time, just so that you've got time to grab that information. If you didn't do either one of that, no worries, because we'll bring it up on share screen later. Vamos a empezar. We are going to practice with that. We're going to pick up again with that whole thing of gustar and verbs that are like gustar, and you know what happens with all of that. So we're going to be split between some regular verbs, some vocabulary, using our active vocabulary of adverbs of frequency, and verbs that are like gustar. I think I'm also going to be sharing with you and sending you a link to a list of the 100 most common verbs. You know, these are things that are subjective somewhat in nature, because to say what are the most 100 common verbs, well, if you look on different sites, they're going to tell you different things. But there are certainly, I would say, any website you went to figure out what are the 100 most frequently used action words out there in the Spanish language, you know what, about 70% of that would be pretty consistent between one website and another. But I'll share with you one that is kind of helpful to have and maybe check out per usage, according to how often they're used. Vamos a empezar con un ejercicio de escucha. We're going to start with a listening drill. And this is from someone who's far too young to be good at this, but she is. Qué sorpresa, what a surprise. Because I always try to find, you know, you can kind of try to Google stuff yourself, but some people, you know, you see a title and you think it's pretty good, and then you get on there and it's like, this isn't very good. Or it's got problems, or it's got errors. This young lady that we're going to watch today for our warm-up listening drill, she actually is very good at something called comprehensible input. Comprehensible input, for people who teach languages, is a method of doing listening exercises to build your vocabulary, and assuming that you're not going to know every word, but from the way they're presenting it, or from the way she will explain using visuals and just this little story she's going to tell, that she'll be able to weave in words you don't know, so that from context, you will know probably 70, 75, maybe even 80% of what she's talking about. And the reason comprehensible input is a thing with foreign language is that it is a natural, they say, a natural way of learning language, but it is quite true. It is the way that we pick up language as children. So they call it natural because when we pick up our first language, when we begin to understand our first language, this is actually the process by which we begin to understand our first language. Therefore, it works with the second or third or fourth, or whichever language you're working on. So this young lady, despite her years, does actually quite a good job of it. And we're going to have her tell a little story for you. And we'll see how much you pick up with that. I need to put on my sound with share screen. Se llama Laura. Esta joven, this young lady, esta joven se llama Laura. Y va a contar.
Laura. Hola, Laura.
Este de aquí es mi teléfono viejo, antiguo. Es mi primer teléfono.
So notice what she's doing with primer. If you don't know the word primer, okay.
Los teléfonos tienen cámara, tienen una cámara.
Okay, there you gotta know tienen, but tienen cámara.
Bueno, este tiene dos cámaras, este tiene una cámara y con este teléfono he sacado muchas fotos.
Okay, he sacado you don't know. He sacado is more in Spain than in Mexico or Latin America, but he sacado means I have taken. Sacar means to take out, like take out trash. It means actually many things. It's sometimes used instead of tomar fotos. You can say sacar fotos, to take a photograph. And he sacado, she's just putting it in the recent past. He sacado, I have taken. Not I'm doing it right now, but I have taken it. So, he sacado, you don't know.
He sacado muchas fotos. En esta foto hay 1, 2, 3 y 4 bolsas de plástico.
And because we can't use plastic as an adjective in Spanish. When you talk about the material that something is made out of, like clothing, like a container, you have to use de and the noun. So plastic is not, like we'll say a plastic bottle, plastic tube, okay, a plastic bag. You have to say a bag of plastic. Like you say a table, una mesa de madera, a table made out of wood, okay? So de plástico means made out of, because they don't have an adjective for plástico. Plástico is a noun, it's a thing.
Transparentes, puedes ver a través del plástico, no tiene color, son transparentes y podemos ver lo que hay dentro. Dentro. Aquí no podemos ver lo que hay dentro.
Dentro. Dentro. Dentro es un dentro. En mi bolsillo no hay nada dentro del bolsillo. ¿Entienden? Dentro. Dentro. Afuera, dentro. Afuera, dentro. ¿Ok? Vale.
Porque es de color negro. Estas bolsas son transparentes y podemos ver lo que hay dentro. Detrás de las bolsas de plástico
Detrás.
hay mandarinas. Las mandarinas son redondas y de color naranja. ¿Te gustan o no te gustan las mandarinas? A mí sí me gustan. Al lado de las mandarinas hay uvas. Una uva, muchas uvas. Muchas uvas, todas juntas. Así, muchas uvas juntas se llama un racimo de uvas. Y aquí atrás hay un racimo de uvas.
¿Qué es un racimo en inglés?
Racimo de
Bunch.
A
Bunch.
A bunch. We would call that a bunch.
Mhm.
Okay, racimo. And that word racimo comes from the word for that talks about branches. Okay, so you see how it gets into the idea of racimo, because that's the way a group of grapes hangs, right?
Verdes y un racimo de uvas moradas. Las uvas y las mandarinas están en cajas de plástico negro. Son las cajas de mercadillo, porque esto es un mercadillo que vende fruta. La vende. Yo te doy fruta y tú me das dinero. Estos son 10 pounds. Aquí hay un código de barras que sirve para escanear la comida.
Y se dice escanear. There is no Spanish verb for scan. They borrowed it from English as a lot of technology. A lot of technology words do that. And it's not just with Spanish, it's with a lot of languages because English is the language of technology. So escanear, because you can't say scan, SC, can't start a word in Spanish. It's got to be like español, right? Like español. E-S-P-A-N-E, okay? Español. So, escanear.
Un código de barras. Otra foto. Esta foto es muy distinta, parecido, distinto.
Ah, parecido, distinto. Parecido, alike. Distinto, different.
Different.
Right. It looks like our word distinct, but it's not so much distinct as it is different. Okay. No son parecidos, son distintos. Una pluma y un lápiz, ¿verdad? Son distintos. They're different.
Esta foto es muy distinta a la anterior porque esto es una tienda de ropa. Aquí hay camisas, aquí hay pantalones, zapatos. Esto es un maniquí, 2, 3 maniquíes. Y esta tienda es muy grande. Pequeño, grande. La tienda es muy grande y tiene muchos espejos. Esto son espejos. Esto es un espejo y encima de los espejos, encima está la segunda planta, la planta 2, que tiene sujetadores y aquí hay una señora pagando con dinero en la caja porque esto es la caja. En la caja se paga con dinero. Sí.
Y paga registradora that is a cash register, but la caja is how you'll always see it. You'll never see it as a two-word term. You know, if they've got a little sign telling you where to pay, it'll just say caja or cajero, you know, it'll say something like that. And the word caja is just box, but when you're in a store, la caja is the place where you pay. It's the cash register.
Siguiente
Okay.
foto.
Gasolinera.
Esta foto me encanta. Me encanta. La simetría es muy buena porque esto es una gasolinera. Una gasolinera donde echas gasolina en tu coche. La gasolinera se llama Gamar, no es una marca muy popular. Y está el techo de la gasolinera, el techo, y está dando sombra, una sombra perfecta. Todo esto es la sombra y crea una línea perfecta. Es súper satisfactoria esta foto. Me encanta. Aquí tenemos el coche.
And she used a verb that's like gustar. Me encanta. Me encanta. Not I
Love.
like it, but she bumps it up a level. Instead of just me gusta, I like it. It's me encanta. I love it. Okay, so she loves it from an artistic point of view. And she talks about la sombra, which is the shade, the shadow. La sombra.
Sombra.
Okay.
Gris, echando gasolina. Aquí puedes lavar tu coche con esas pistolas de agua a presión que haces. Pero lo tienes que hacer tú. No es el lavado de coches que hace y te lava el coche solo. Siguiente foto.
Coming back from the beach, that says, volviendo de la playa.
Esta foto es una foto en blanco y negro. No tiene color. Y es una foto que la saqué en la playa. La playa no se ve en la foto porque está detrás. Y aquí esto son apartamentos de playa. Y son muy guays porque son de color rosa. Aquí no se ve el color porque está en blanco y negro, pero son de color rosa. Y aquí hay palmeras. Las palmeras son muy típicas en la playa. Y aquí hay un señor.
Okay. Y las palmeras son los árboles tropicales que tenemos aquí en Arizona, que tienen en California, que tienen en la Florida, en Estados Unidos, las palmeras, ¿bien? Palm trees.
Hablando por teléfono con gafas de sol y unos pantalones cortos y una camiseta de manga corta. También tiene un reloj de muñeca, Aquí hay unas personas volviendo de la playa, están volviendo a casa y tienen un flotador súper grande. Y aquí tienen un remo para remar. Aquí atrás.
Sí, un remo es una manera, es algo que se usa para mover un barco o un kayak. Si tú vas en kayak o en un barco pequeño, hay que remar un remo, ¿sí? ¿Entienden? Es lo que usamos en el medio de transporte de un kayak para moverse por el agua. Ok.
Hay gente cruzando la calle por un paso de cebra. Esto es un paso de cebra.
Paso de...
Esto es la carretera.
Bueno, paso de cebra. Cebra en español es zebra. Un paso de cebra son las líneas en la calle para cruzar cuando las personas caminan y cruzan la calle, ¿entienden? They call it a zebra crossing, okay? So zebra is zebra, so it's got stripes like a zebra. That's why it gets that name, okay? Bien. Pero carretera, aquí carretera es highway or road.
Con los coches, esto es la acera para...
La acera. La acera no es para carros. La acera es para las personas que caminan. La acera, ¿sí? La acera, sidewalk. Sidewalk.
Las personas para caminar, y aquí hay unas escaleras. Estos son escaleras de
And there you can't really tell that well, but those are steps. Escaleras are steps. Or
madera.
stairs.
Siguiente.
Traga.
Esta foto la saqué en Praga, y esta es Laura con 17 años. Se me puede ver en la cara que era muy joven. Bueno, ahora también soy joven, pero aquí era más joven aún.
And here she used a past. Instead of soy joven, I am young. Era joven, I was young. Muy joven. Con 17 años. Con 10 is with 17 years. That's how she refers to how old she was in that photo. Laura con 17 años. En inglés, diríamos, we would say Laura at 17 years of age. En inglés se dice at 17 years of age. Wait a minute, at, doesn't that tell a place? Well, her age is not a place, but we say at 17, right? But in Spanish, you express that as con 17 años. She's with a certain number of years.
Y tenía el pelo largo y estaba sentada en esta valla esperando al tranvía. Este es el tranvía.
Tranvía. Tranvía es un medio de transporte. No es un autobús, pero es un medio de transporte público. Hay que pagar, pero es público. Bien. Un tranvía, una tranvía. La tranvía está aquí. Tranvía. A tram. An electric car. Tranvía. Bien.
Y estos son los raíles del tranvía. El tranvía normalmente funciona con electricidad y va por estos cables. Estos cables de aquí arriba hacen que el tranvía funcione. Y pues aquí atrás hay un taxi y un coche. Aquí hay un señor que va a cruzar la calle, y esto son las fachadas de unos edificios.
Fachada es facade. The front part of a building, la fachada.
Antiguos en el centro de Praga. Aquí atrás hay una colina, una montaña, una colina.
Colina colina es más pequeño que una montaña. Una montaña es muy alta. Una colina es más baja. ¿Bien? ¿Entienden? Colina, 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 montaña. Las Himalayas son montañas. Bien, las montañas rocosas, the Rockies, son montañas, pero colinas son más pequeñas, ¿sí?
Muy verde, con muchos árboles. Y para ir a la colina hay que cruzar la calle, cruzar el río, porque aquí, antes de la montaña, hay un río. Siguiente foto.
Un bar.
Fue en el camino de Santiago y es Laura joven también, comiéndose una hamburguesa. Aquí llevaba unas gafas de sol naranjas y esto es en un bar muy, muy simple con una mesa de Estrella Galicia, que es una cerveza, y aquí hay un cenicero. Esto es un cenicero para la gente que fuma, para la colilla.
Cenicero es donde se ponen las cenizas. Cenizas are ashes. So cenicero is something that holds ashes. Bien? An ashtray.
La colilla. No se tiran las colillas al suelo. Y esto es un servilletero. Esto son servilletas para limpiarte la boca después de comer una hamburguesa. Estos son vasos de agua y aquí esto es un cargador prehistórico porque es muy grande y muy viejo. Un cargador prehistórico para el móvil. Un cargador.
Bien. Portátil quiere decir portable. Cargador is a charger. Okay. Cargador portátil, a portable charger, so a take it with you kind of charger. Bien.
Cargador portátil. Siguiente.
Un pintor, painter.
Aquí hay un señor que está pintando la pared con un rodillo. Esto es un rodillo. Y es una pared muy grande y un rodillo muy pequeño. Y aquí está el cubo. Esto es un cubo de pintura. Un cubo, un bote de pintura.
Cubo looks like cube, can mean cube, but cubo here means a bucket or a pail. A bucket or a pail, we might call it in English. Un cubo, un bote de pintura, ¿sí? Pintura es paint, the thing that is paint. La pintura, sí, pintura. Y el rodillo, it's a rolling brush because it's a round brush. It's not a regular brush.
Un bote es más pequeño. Un bote de pintura es algo así. Pero esto es un cubo de pintura. Y aquí hay un carro de la compra con una escoba. La escoba sirve para barrer.
I'm going to back her up just a little bit. This is one of those language differences. Carro, se dice carro en Latinoamérica para car, carro. En España, carro is a cart. So what you wheel down the supermarket aisles es un carro or carrito, okay? En España se dice coche, they use coche for car. I've heard a lot of people in Colombia talk about using coche for car also, but it kind of depends on which country you're in. They'll either, and everybody knows that coche is car. Everybody knows that carro is car. Pero en España, but in Spain, that word carro usually specifically refers to a cart, something with wheels, but smaller. Okay, so a cart, horses would draw carts, un carro. All right.
De
Bien.
la compra con una escoba.
Escoba es broom. Bien, broom.
La escoba sirve para barrer el suelo y esto es un semáforo. El paso de cebra.
Un semáforo. Las luces de la calle, ¿sí? Las luces de la luz roja, la luz amarilla, la luz verde en la calle, ¿sí? Semáforo. A semaphore in English has a special meaning. You know, those old World War II or even earlier movies where they have the guys on the ships doing the flags, and those are semaphores, okay? And originally, lights had the little flag things that came down before they had lights, little stop signs, but they still call those semáforos for street lights.
Y el semáforo en verde para los peatones.
Peatones son personas que caminan en la calle o en la acera. Las personas que caminan son peatones. Peatón es pedestrian. Peatón. Peatón is a pedestrian.
Peatones cruzan la calle y los coches esperan. Mira, aquí hay otro cubo. Hay 2 cubos de pintura, un cono y una cinta. Esta foto la saqué por la mañana. Por eso hay mucha luz y mucho sol, porque la saqué por la mañana. Si queréis ver más fotos que he sacado con mis teléfonos, dejadlo en un comentario y así hacemos más videos.
Ok, y eso generalmente es todo. That's pretty much it for that. Para esto. Ok, ¿entienden? 70%, about 70%, could you understand?
Yeah.
About, okay, vale. You know, if you know a very small group of verbs, like tener and ser and those general ones, you can follow most of what she says. And she speaks very slowly, which is part of the thing with comprehensible input. She does not speak at a native speed. I will send to you pretty soon, and you're going to see we're going to use some of these. I am going to send you as kind of a plus the link to this, which is one of our 100 most common verbs. Yay. And the nice thing about this is that
Abrir.
it's got, and you cannot see it so well here, but
Abrir.
Abrir.
you can hit the little sound button, the little icon, and it will show you. And the reason they have a person's face, they want you to watch what their mouth is doing when they pronounce each one of these verbs, so that you can not only hear, you will be able to hear the verb pronounced, but you can see the lips, how they are moving, and how, how your mouth should be working to do those. So we've got lots of these you're going to recognize as things you've seen in class. Some of them, lots of them you haven't. Some of them are going to be cognates. They are verbs that sound like an English verb, like aceptar. Okay. And others will be totally new. Necesitar is a cognate. Ocurrir is a cognate. Okay. Ofrecer, offer, looks quite a lot like offer. Ofrecer, we could say that one is a cognate. Comenzar looks like commence. So again, a nice cognate. Comprender is definitely a cognate. It looks like comprehend. It means to understand. Okay. We could maybe even stretch it a little bit and say pagar, even looks a little bit like a cognate. Convertir, I would say stay away a little bit from that one. Convertir means to convert or change, but it means more than that. And the way it is used is a little different. This verb convertir is usually used as convertirse, and it means to become, to turn into something. And that one is a little more complicated to actually use, but most of these, permitir, are definitely a cognate. A lot of these are going to be words that are very, very common in Spanish. And it's always nice to kind of have just a general idea of which verbs are most frequently used, which things you're likely to hear. And of course, often you're going to hear them conjugated. You won't hear them as, por ejemplo, recordar. You know, you'll hear it in its conjugated form, recuerdo, or in the past, recordada, or recordé, I remembered. So the reason it's useful to have the list of the original verb is that it helps you to know, sometimes you may hear a form of it. And when you hear a conjugated form, just know, okay, it's talking about that action. Maybe you don't have the grammar yet for the tense, you know, whether it's happening now, whether it happened in the past, whether it will happen in the future. But you'll have at least an idea of what the action itself is talking about. And you will notice that a lot of these are well, some of these are going to be what we call cognates, things that look like English. And then of course, others that won't at all. Utilizar, we have utilize, right? But we don't use that word utilize so much unless we're talking about, you know, about technical equipment. But utilizar is used quite a lot in Spanish. So anyway, kind of a fun list to have for talking about a whole bunch of different verbs to start getting familiar with that. Okay, bien. Vamos a ver otro vocabulario que este vocabulario no consiste en verbos, son adverbios. These are going to be adverbs. We're going to start to combine some verbs with things that are adverbs of time, things that talk about when we do certain things. And this will be a list I'm going to send to you as well, but we're just going to kind of review. And some of these, again, will be cognates, some not. Whenever you see mente, mente is frequently an equivalent for ly in English, like quickly, slowly, happily. So some adverbs, but not all, some use mente as we would use ly, and you'll see where that pops up. So we'll see how many of these you can combine with the questions we have later on, the verbs we have later on, to talk about when or how often we do things. And you're going to go off and do some separate practice in smaller groups with this. Pero, para repasar, to review. Here are some words that talk about when or how often we do an activity, all right? Tenemos siempre, always. Siempre, always. Constantemente, constantly. Constantemente, ¿sí? A menudo, often. There are a lot of ways to say often or frequent. Oh, like we have often and frequently. Is there any difference in English between frequently and often, what they mean? There they're synonyms. They're words that mean the same thing, but we sometimes use a different term to express that idea. A menudo is often. Con frecuencia or frecuentemente mean often or frequently. Frequently and often mean the same thing, really. It means you do it a lot. Many, many times. Todos los días, all the days, literally every day. Todos los días. Diariamente. So we've had mente come up 3 times here. Constantemente, frecuentemente, diariamente. Our word diary, recounting what you do every day in writing comes from this same word. Diariamente, daily. Muchas veces, a lot, many times. Literally, muchas veces is many times. Mucho, a lot. All right, mucho can also mean much, but a lot. Camino mucho, I walk a lot. Bebo café mucho o muchas veces. Okay, regularmente, here comes mente again, regularly. Weekly, cada semana or semanalmente. I would say out of those 2 terms, cada semana is way more common. Cada just means each or every. Cada semana, every week. Cada semana. So I would say if you want to incorporate weekly, like you do it once a week, cada semana is what more people tend to use as opposed to semanalmente. Usualmente, usually. Generalmente, or por lo general, they mean the same thing. Generally, generalmente. A veces, sometimes. So we've had many, many things that mean sometimes, okay? A menudo, sometimes is the same as often, isn't it? Sometimes is really the same thing as frequently. So just as we have many terms to express that you do this, not just once in a while, but a lot, we have many terms in Spanish. A menudo, con frecuencia, muchas veces, okay? A veces, sometimes. De vez en cuando. De vez en cuando means from time to time. De vez en cuando, from time to time, is not really so much as muchas veces. De vez en cuando is closer to the idea of a veces. Sometimes and from time to time are kind of equivalent in terms of frequency, right? A veces, at times or sometimes, and de vez en cuando, from time to time, means it happens once in a while, but maybe not every day, right? Cada mes, every month. Mensualmente, like semanalmente, is not as common. Cada semana, every week. Cada mes, every month. How do you think you would say every or each or every day? You can say todos los días, but you can also use this word cada with the word day. And you can express it as cada día. Cada día. Cada is a word that can be combined with many other words to say each. I can say cada día, every day, cada mes, every month, cada semana, every week. I can say cada lunes, every Monday, cada martes, every Tuesday. So this word cada, which never changes form, it doesn't become a masculine word. It's always cada. You can combine cada with lots of time expressions to say each one of whatever that time expression is. Cada lunes, every Monday. Cada día, every day. Cada semana, every week. Okay. Entiendo. Por lo menos.
So that one doesn't change masculine or feminine.
No, cada is always cada. You never morph cada into a different kind of form. It's just cada by itself.
Or plural. And not plural either.
Todo, however, does. Todo does change. So let's look at this phrase, todos los días,
Mm.
right? Todos los días, all the days, literally, but every day. You can also say cada día, and it means the same thing. It's a different word combination. It's a different word phrase. It's a different chunk of words to express that same idea. Todos los días. Cada día carries the same meaning. But cada día is used with, just a singular word, día. Todos los días. Todos has to go into, todos does have to change into a masculine and a plural form to say todos los días.
But if you said every afternoon, is it todas?
Todas las tardes, all
Okay.
the afternoons. Sí, muy bien.
Okay.
Todas las noches, every night. Todas las noches. So this word todos does morph into different forms. Now, if you ask me, why does it do that? Because todos is an adjective. Why does cada not? I can't tell you why not. It just doesn't.
Wow.
Cada is just cada. But todos, all does change into different forms. Todos los días, todas las tardes, todos or todas las noches, every night. Todas las semanas, every week, all the weeks. Todas las semanas.
I like cada better and better. All
You
the
like
time.
cada better and better. But now this is a good thing to realize, because let's say you feel a little tongue-tied with, what do I do with that word todos? You don't have to worry about that with the word cada, do you? Cada just stays cada. So it's kind of nice to have some of these words in your hip pocket that you can just pull out and it won't matter, right? Although todos is an important word to know. Todo means all in general, and todo can be used in all those forms of todo, toda, todos, todas, okay? So, and it's todo is a word you will hear people use a lot. Okay, so we have the word cada, we have the word todos, por lo menos, at least, bastante, enough. Bastante. I need to clarify bastante. Bastante means enough, but bastante, we could, I'm going to actually change this and add something to it. Quite a lot. We probably use this idea of quite a lot with bastante. Por ejemplo, if I say, tomo bastante café por la mañana, it doesn't really mean I drink enough coffee. Tomo bastante café, I drink quite a little bit, quite a bit, quite a lot. Quite a lot, quite a bit. That word bastante has many meanings. Okay, and I messed up my spacing here, but pocas veces means few times, literally few times. So pocas veces is kind of at the opposite spectrum of muchas veces. Muchas veces means many times, like often, a lot, muchas veces, but pocas veces, a few times, not a lot. Anualmente, annually, well, okay, you may hear a little bit, poco, a little bit, menos, less, apenas, hardly. Jamás is never. Jamás or nunca. Nunca, jamás. You hear jamás more in Spain, but you hear nunca all the time, everywhere, always. Nunca. Nunca, if it stands by itself, will go in front of the verb, like nunca fumo. Nunca fumo. Nunca fumo. I never smoke. Okay. Nunca como carne. I never eat meat. If you're a vegetarian, nunca como carne. Nunca, you can always fit in front of the verb and then it can stand by itself. Sometimes you'll hear it as a double negative. No fumo nunca. No fumo nunca. I never smoke is the same thing as nunca fumo. Okay, and we'll take a look at some of those double negative expressions a little bit more later on this summer. But these are just some ways, and as you can see, and nunca again is always stays, like cada is always cada, nunca is always nunca, all right? Very few of these change in gender. Pocas did, todas did, but most of these talk about adverbs that refer to the time frame of when something happens. So we don't tend to use a lot of gender-based words with these expressions. And there are lots and lots of words we can use to talk about when or how often you do something. Bien? Okay. ¿Alguna pregunta? Some kind of question with these?
Sí, una pregunta.
Bueno.
Does the expression come at the front of everything or at the back of everything?
Bien. Okay. Bien. Qué buena pregunta. What a good question. And that is something I anticipated somebody was going to ask. We're going to take a look at how we do this before we send you out into groups.
Oh, okay.
A good general rule of thumb is that you can take one of these time phrases and start off your sentence, or it'll be the tail end. So it's going to be the engine or the caboose on the train. You often have some flexibility as to where these time frequency phrases can go. But if in doubt, either lead off or have it be the very tail end. So we're going to take a look at how some of these are used. And sometimes there may be kind of stricter rules about these, but you know, there are things we can do to make it a little bit easier. So let's look at some examples. Okay, I'm trying to decide where we start. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Adverbs of frequency. Okay. And notice these. Here is a never and here's an often. Nunca voy a la playa. Nunca is one of those special words. It's a
Never go
special
to.
word. If you say you never
Never
do
go.
something. Nunca can stand by itself, always safely in front of the verb. Nunca voy a la playa. But notice if I want to say often, and here's one word for often, a menudo. It's a nice thing to start off your sentence with that. A menudo hacemos la tarea juntos. A menudo. I could take this phrase, a menudo, and swing it to the back end. I could also say, hacemos la tarea juntos a menudo. Perfecto. Still good. Okay. Nunca, because it's kind of a special negative word. If I swing it to the back, I've got to make it a double negative. No voy, a double negative. No voy a la playa nunca. So with nunca, if you want to say never, it's always safer to use it by itself in front of the verb. Nunca voy a la playa. But this one, a menudo, when you've got many words that make up a phrase for a time sequence, it's good to lead off or to end up the sentence one way or the other. Okay, let's take some examples with a veces. Pues a veces viajamos a México. Pues, well, a veces we're leading off. A veces viajamos. Sometimes we travel. We could say viajamos a México a veces. We could swing a veces to the back of the sentence, still perfectly good. Okay. Okay. Let's look at this. Sometimes I feel very lonely. A veces me siento muy solo. A veces. We could swing a veces into the back of the sentence and it still makes perfect sense. Me siento muy solo a veces. And that second, el maestro nos regaña a veces. They took a veces and swung it to the back of the sentence. So good. A veces hablamos por teléfono. Sometimes we talk on the phone. Nosotros, well, which is really kind of not needed at all. A veces hablamos por teléfono. Bien. Hablamos por teléfono a veces. They swing the a veces behind. So a veces can lead off your sentence. It can finish up your sentence. ¿Entienden? So anytime, especially when you've got a time frequency stamp, a phrase, it's safe to lead off or to finish up the sentence with that. Bien? Make sense? See? Okay. So let's take a look now at these sentences. Now is the time, if you've got this printed out on a page, we're going to take a look at these and we're going to do them. We're going to do these in, I'm going to say groups of 4, cuatro, so that you can go out and use it, come back and see if you have any questions. And then we'll do another group of 4 and come back. Bien? Okay. So we're going to look at the first 4. If you don't have this printed off, you may want to quickly jot down these questions real fast. We're just going to look at the first 4. Espero que puedan ver. I hope you can all see these. Are these big enough for you to see on the screen, or do I need un poquito más grande? Do I need to make them even a little bigger?
No.
No, okay.
No.
Vale. Bien. Okay. Cada cuánto or con qué frecuencia are just 2 lead-off phrases that mean how often. Cada cuánto. Con qué frecuencia. So you're going to use these to ask each other and talk about how often you do these things. Okay. Llevas tú, llevas, sí, en un bolsillo. Llevas, do you take? Llevas, carry, take. Llevas tu celular contigo. How often do you
Take your phone with you.
take your cell phone with you? Necesitas ir al supermercado. How often do you need to
Go to the supermarket.
go to the supermarket? ¿Con qué, cada cuánto sí o con qué frecuencia pagas las facturas? Como la electricidad, el agua, etcétera, ¿sí? Pagas las facturas. Facturas son bills, okay? Bills that come to your house, like for utilities, ¿sí? Y cada cuánto o con qué frecuencia pides la comida rápida. La comida rápida is fast food. How often do you order pides? And this is our one irregular in this group. It's an E to I stem changer. So when you answer it, it'll be pido. Even though it comes from pedir, P-E-D-I-R, pedir, you do not answer this with pedo. Because sadly, the word pedo, P-E-D-O, means a gaseous expulsion from one's behind. That's what that word means, pedo.
That's fast food for you.
Yeah, in Mexico, it's a false friend. It sure is. Pedo. And just so you know, a side note, a fun side note, in Mexico especially, que pedo doesn't really mean what fart. Que pedo is used as a slang term to kind of say what's up, what's going on. I don't know how it got to mean that, but it did. But when you say I order something, it will not be pedo from pedir. It'll be pido, right? Pido. I order. Muy importante. Pido. I order. Okay, I'm going to send you off into groups to use these questions to talk about how often. So now you're going to insert however often you do that. So it'll be different for different people, right? Some people may order fast food every week, every Monday, every Friday as a treat with their grandkids. Depende mucho. It depends quite a lot. Okay, I think I'm going to break you out pretty much into groups of 3, 2 or 3. We might have one group of 2. Okay, bien, you will need to hit your join button. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, about 7 minutes, because some of you may do these with different degrees of frequency. Bien, and then we'll come back and compare some notes. I'm going to set my timer. And is everybody on? Oh, did it put me in a group? It shouldn't. Okay, bye. Momentito, más café.
Are you still?
Yeah. Yes, I'm on
Okay, so I'm having some.
problems. Oh,
Well, you're in class?
I'm in class, yeah. Okay. Wow. I hope you were still there because my internet totally flaked out on me right in the middle of your session here and it just came back. I can see you're here. Yay. I think we're waiting on me. Are we still waiting on maybe one or two people to come back in? I may have lost one person. Okay, espero que no. Just so you know, para que sepan, wow, so you know I had some funky things. My husband ran down from his office in a panic. It's like, are you on Zoom? I said, yes. And then I looked, it's like, oh no. It's like, I hope when I come back, they're all there. Yay, okay. Muy bien. Bueno, hay preguntas. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Por ejemplo, si yo no llevo mi celular siempre conmigo. Es mal hábito. That's a bad habit. ¿Sí? Tengo que, oh, aquí viene Dorothy. Here comes Dorothy. Yep, see, somebody got the boot. Y perdón. Perdón, Dorothy, since you're connecting. Sorry, I know we had a funny thing on my end, so it may have booted you out. Okay. Yo personalmente necesito ir al supermercado cada semana, quizás 2 veces a la semana, 2 veces a la semana. A menudo necesito ir al supermercado. A menudo necesito ir. Pago las facturas cada mes. Cada mes, every month, generalmente cada mes. Y pido comida rápida. No pido comida rápida mucho. De vez en cuando pido la comida rápida personalmente. ¿Bien? ¿Tienen ustedes algunas preguntas? Do you have any questions about what you did with those little 4 questions? Okay, Nora, bien, dime.
Yes, our group had a question about number 4. The pides la comida rápida. We were questioning the double negative. No nunca pido la comida rápida. Is
Okay.
that correct, or does the nunca go at the end when you have the double?
Bien, okay. If there are a couple of ways you can say if you never do that. And bear with me because Zoom popped me off. It also booted my chat box. Okay. A ver. And also, it's also got some strange little thing where it's not letting me go into chat box at all. Now it is. Okay. Bien. Por ejemplo, so I'm going to type this into the chat box. Pido. No, if you do this as a double negative, like I never order fast food, it would look like this. No pido la comida rápida nunca. But kind of more frequent, unless somebody wants to be very forceful, very emphatic about the fact of making it never, or like, oh, never. Yeah, and like with our voice in English. The way we do it, oh, I never order it, is by making it a double negative, okay? You can also phrase it as nunca pido la comida rápida. Either one that you see in the chat box is correct. No pido la comida rápida nunca. No pido nunca la comida rápida. You can put the nunca behind the verb. Está bien. O nunca pido la comida rápida. So the only thing you need to know about that special word, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about some special phrases that go double negative or don't later this summer. Nunca, because it's a special negative word. Think of it as a special word. Nunca, when it's a special negative word, can come right up in front of the verb. And then you don't need to double negative it. You don't need to double up the nose. But people may express the same idea as the double negative with a no, then your verb, and then the nunca somewhere after the verb. Okay? And where that nunca can go, es un poquito flexible. It's a little bit flexible. Bien? I could say nunca pido, no pido la comida rápida nunca, no pido nunca la comida rápida. Está bien. It's all good. Bien? Okay, más preguntas, more questions? Oh, and I think I've got you guys frozen.
Well, yeah, I was very busy last 2 months, but yeah, I was in Hawaii last 2 weeks.
Oh,
Nice.
You're on mute, Marilyn.
I don't even see her yet.
I don't see her yet.
I see her.
Okay.
Yeah.
There she
There
Now
you
you
go.
can see me?
Yes.
I've got something flaky going on. I'm looking at my light from my Wi-Fi. It's
Oh,
on,
nice.
but
Nice,
okay,
see
perdón.
that.
I am so sorry. I did absolutely flaked out there. Yeah, and I have no idea why. Everybody was there, and then all of a sudden everybody froze. It's like, ooh, no one's moving. That's a bad sign. Okay. Did we answer your question about the frequency thing?
Yes.
Nora, see?
Yes, very good. Thank you.
Okay, vale. Okay, before this thinks out on me again, let's take a quick look at our next 4 questions in case some people have to grab these down. We're going to look at what they mean. And boy, I hope when I send you out, you're okay. So we're looking at número 5. Bien? 5. And we better take the next 6 of these together because, oh my gosh, I'm now paranoid about my internet. Here we go. Haces ejercicio. Do you exercise? So you're going to talk about how often you exercise. There is no one word to say to exercise. It's always do exercise. Hacer ejercicio. Hacer ejercicio. Haces, ¿sí? Cada cuánto haces ejercicio. How often do you exercise? Cada cuánto, how often? Cada cuánto ayudas con los quehaceres en casa. How often do you help with chores at home? Para mi esposo, nunca. Nunca. Ni una vez, not even one time. Okay. Cada cuánto ves los noticieros. Ves los noticieros. Do you watch the news? Do you see the news? But usually if you're watching it on TV or watching it on YouTube or however you do that, ves los noticieros. Do you see the news? Lavas tu carro. How often do you wash your car? Cada cuánto, how often, cada cuánto tomas un café Por la mañana con un amigo. How often do you have coffee with a buddy in the morning? Y cada cuánto, how often, cada cuánto vas al centro de Scottsdale? How often do you go downtown? Al centro. How often do you go downtown to downtown Scottsdale? I'm going to give you about 7 minutes. I know if I flake out, you will still be there. So hang in there with me. We're going to hope my signal holds up this time. Bien, ¿está bien? Are we good? Okay. Vamos. Let's do our breakout room one more time. Una vez más. Oh, and Dorothy, I've got to assign you to a room. Okay, muy bien, muy bien. You will need to take yourselves off of mute if you have a question or something that you would like to share. Bueno, entonces, ¿hay alguna pregunta? Is there some kind of question on what you did? What you practiced there? ¿Sí o no? ¿No? ¿Nada? Okay, vale.
Could I just ask one thing? Well, not ask.
Oh,
Since
sí, 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 claro.
I didn't see in any of the frequencies una vez and una luna azul.
Oh, you will not see una luna azul. Una vez, okay, a ver, in the chat box, I am going to put una vez. Una vez. Una vez is once. The way to say once is a two-word combination. Una vez. As a matter of fact, I am surprised at how clairvoyant you folks are, because you're going to have a video as part of your tarea that will go through this. Oh, why we use that word vez so much, because we will. Vez is a time. Una vez is one time. One time is once. So, una vez. Once in a blue moon is going to be probably something like raras veces, you know, rare times, few times, yeah. Or rara vez, or de vez en cuando, from time to time. But once in a blue moon will be just not, you know, infrequently. So, yeah. Once in a blue moon, well, a blue moon is technically when you have two full moons in a month. Is that right? That's how that phrase came about in English. Yeah. But it'll be something else. But una vez is just once. Okay. Buena pregunta. ¿Qué más? ¿Hay más? No? Okay. I'm going to preview for you folks and disculpenme, please forgive me for my my flicking out internet today, but I do want to take some time to kind of amplify a little bit on this thing about the word time, because I'm going to give you as sort of homework. I'm going to show you what she looks like so that you can recognize her when you see her. One of the things you're going to do as tarea, this is a 15-minute video. She talks about all the different words. This is the lovely Brenda. Brenda will talk to you about la diferencia entre time, hora, and vez. Tiempo, hora, y vez. If you look up the word time in Spanish, they'll give you different words, but they're used in different contexts. So sometimes to talk about the word literally time, we use tiempo. Sometimes to use the word time in Spanish, we use hora. Sometimes we use the word time, vez. And she's going to talk about the differences between Spanish and English for the word time, all right? Because the context of how they're used or the implication for how they're being used determines whether you use tiempo or hora or vez. So that will differ according to the context. I am also going to have you go to this site. It is called Spanish Academy Blog. So you're also going to go to this, but now the difference is this is going to be in very big letters like you see here. You're going to have to scroll way down to where it says practice using sometimes. And they're just going to focus on sometimes. And they're going to start off with saying, just know which term might you use. Put them in the order from most frequent to the least frequent. There are different time reference phrases. And then see if you can plug in these ideas in parentheses, okay? But when you see monthly or annually, they do give you those words mente. When you see monthly and annually, I want you to use cada. They're going to feed you a different answer. I want you to feed in the word cada with the time period. Okay? Cada año, cada mes, cada semana, because really, conversationally, that is a little more frequent and a little easier for an English speaker to pick up and use correctly right away. Okay? Cada with the time period. It could be cada lunes, every Monday, cada martes, every Friday, cada viernes, every Friday, cada fin de semana, every weekend. Cada is great to use with time periods, okay? Because it's a seamless and easy to use thing. It'll give you some answers down there. And then it'll ask you to do some translation. So that's going to be a nice little easy way for you to practice some time frequency words in Spanish. And we're going to pick up with gustar because I did not have time to pick up with gustar. So I'm probably going to send you a link to something that talks about verbs that are like gustar. And actually there is a reference in your actual book to verbs that are like gustar. So I will send you to take a look at that, although we will not use all of them next week. We'll use some of these verbs that are like gustar. And we'll do a little recap of how gustar is different from those 100 verbs that are most common, okay? Remember that gustar only uses gusta, singular, or gustan, plural. Well, there are other verbs that will behave like gustar. So instead of going into the yo and the tú and the nosotros and everything else, it'll just be gusta or gustan. It'll be just encanta or encantan. And I'll reference the page numbers of verbs that are like that. So you can kind of start to get a feel for which verbs behave like, act like gustar, meaning they have only a singular form and a plural form. And there'll be a little pronoun in front of it. A me, a te, a nos, a le, or a les. Okay, so we will dive back into that next week. Está bien. Is that good? Sí? Bien. Fantástico, fantástico. And I will send you a little reference for some conversational things for verbs we will use. They'll be the verbs that are like gustar that we're going to use, and you'll use in practice in smaller groups. So I'll send you a link to a little set of scenarios or questions to use with that. Okay. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Any question before we seg off here? And I think we've made up for the time we lost with my fizz out with the Wi-Fi. ¿Hay alguna pregunta o no? ¿No? Okay. Bien. Eso es todo. That will be all for today. Y nos vemos